but you did go to bed early. I know everything. You guys have always underestimated me. How bad is the eye? Is he worried about going out with it? We can't afford missed performances. We can't afford missed beats or wasted interviews. I mean, everything we do now has got to count. Okay, anything else today? Nope. Okay, bye-bye.
Morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Good morning, Peter.
God, what a rigmarole. I mean, I like to keep my trainer going, but it doesn't, getting up at 6:15 in the morning, and then quickly shaving, and then getting ready for the trainer at 6:30, and then making sure it ends on the dot at 7:30, and then racing down and having my muesli and my fruit and whatnot, and then racing upstairs to shower, and then making sure I'm on the dot at 8 o'clock, sort of dressed, coat on, black tie for the Federation of Small Businesses, dinner, find my cufflinks, sort of feel a bit ragged by about 8:05.
Two former senior cabinet ministers, Jeff Hoon and Pat Hewitt, are texting all of their Labour MP colleagues to call for a secret ballot on Gordon Brown's leadership. The two former ministers knew exactly what they were about to unleash. They would face the hostile questions in public.
This is a betrayal of the party, that's the allegation.
So that in private, their old cabinet colleagues could move against their leader. They would insist that they were just letting the party make up its mind.
The present structure of taxation is wrong. The gap between income tax...
Hi. You're widely credited with having saved the Prime Minister's bacon last time there was a coup attempt. What did you have to do today?
Not a great deal, because nobody needed persuading that the thing was not going to lead anywhere. Indeed, my view was that rather than people running into the streets or into the television studios, they should just let the thing blow through, as it did.
You are now in a party at a senior level which has got a pattern of behaviour like this. Isn't that visible evidence that it's falling apart?
Have we got a pattern of behaviour, really? Is that fair?
Well, how many coup attempts have there now been?
Well, it depends what you mean by a coup attempt. I mean, what Jeff and Patricia were suggesting.
Order! Order! If you want to know how people are going to vote, why not find some courage for once and call the election? Isn't the conclusion of the last week that the Cabinet and the Labour Party are too disloyal to support him, but too incompetent to remove him? Shouldn't he pass the verdict to the British people so we can get rid of the lot of them?
Mr. Speaker.
A lot of people are wondering why you're not the leader of the Labour Party. And I know you have a peerage, but let's leave that aside.
Well, the first reason is that I came into Parliament later than either Tony or Gordon. Tony and Gordon came into Parliament in 1983. I only came into Parliament in 1992. So that's the first point. They had a sort of 10-year start. And then after Tony became leader, it was Gordon's turn next. I mean, nobody had a chance after that, did they?
Do you think that you're a kingmaker rather than a king?
No idea.
This is as close as we can get to London. We just can't get up the river, so the location is ideal.
You had a few chats with Sultana Mohammed, I think.
Yes, I have.
Can you give me a thumbnail sketch of Gordon Brown, what he's like?
He's like a sort of cross between a snowplow and a combine harvester. I mean, he just sort of drives through. And that's how you have to be in politics. Well, he's a one-off, isn't he, Gordon? It's not like anyone. It's not like anyone you've ever met. I mean, perhaps that's the public's problem with Gordon. They can't put him into a category. They can't put him into a likeness. They can't think who he reminds them of. Given up. I'd set off with the tie being straight. I'd give up on the hair as long as the tie was sort of centred. I just cannot understand why you can't tie a tie like anyone else and centre it like anyone else and have it remain there between, you know, in the middle between the two collars. I just don't understand it. You know, if you can, you know, be normal and human with people as he walks through a railway station, let him be. You can't stage it and you can't contrive it. But if he does it, let him do it.
The key thing is how we charge up his batteries. The thing that holds him back with
this is an important point.
The thing that holds him back with the public is they think the guy's low on energy, he's been beaten up, and he's lacking confidence. So we can't construct a campaign which, on paper, gives some kind of definition as a brand if it actually saps his energy and saps his confidence.
No, because I'm thinking about how it's portrayed on the news at night. And
it doesn't have to be portrayed, Ben. It just is. I want him both to be brainy. Fine, he can have his braininess and be as brainy as he likes. What I also want him to be is sufficiently relaxed and approachable that you know, people, you know, can, you know, conclude that he is, as well as everything else, a human being.
But you do need some of these set-piece events that show not just about his brain, but what we're saying about the economy through Gordon and what he's doing and where he is and what he's doing.
Do you know the thing that most people, the thing that people say most to me is, I don't like him terribly, and I certainly wouldn't want to go down to the pub and have a pint of beer with him, but I do think he knows who to phone up in a crisis. I mean, Cameron has now taken over and now owns Slick.
And slimy. That's what the public say about him.
Yeah, I know. The two people in a focus group the other evening, they said, don't really like David Cameron. He's sort of a bit of a mummy's boy. And somebody said that, and then somebody else said, yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't thought of that, but he's such a mummy's boy, isn't he?
Which would you rather be, though, a mummy's boy or the Prince of Darkness?
Oh, my God, Prince of Darkness. Without a shadow of doubt.
You a Labour puppy?
Yes,
Are you?
Few divide opinion within Labour as much as Peter Mandelson. He and Gordon Brown were together architects of New Labour, but they fell out spectacularly when he backed Tony Blair for the leadership in 1994.
What was the question to which Peter Mandelson was the answer?
Serious people are needed for serious times. He's got an unrivaled experience as the Trade Commissioner of the European Commission, and you set aside all the issues of the past in the national interest, and that is what we're doing today.
The difficulty, of course, for Mr. Mandelson and Mr. Brown is he attracts negative publicity and controversy, rather like manure attracts flies.
The unelected Prime Minister has managed to produce the most powerful unelected deputy since Henry VIII appointed Cardinal Wolsey. His personal retinue of 11 ministers, 6 of whom now attend upon him in the House of Lords, is the largest in the government. And the Lord Mandelson has gone around collecting titles and even whole government departments to add to his name. Now adding up to the Right Honourable the Baron Mandelson of Foy in the county of Herefordshire and Hartlepool in the county of Durham, First Secretary of State and Lord President of the Privy Council and Secretary of State for Business and Secretary of State for Innovation and Skills. It would be no surprise to wake up in the morning and find he had become an archbishop.
Maybe you've always been able to multitask.
Multitask, yes.
Read and do your BlackBerry and talk.
Yes. I've always found myself able to concentrate on more than one thing at a time. Don't know whether it's a political training. Now, let's go over these one by one, but I want there to be a sort of seed bed, regularly watered, of understanding, support, acceptance of what we're doing, why, and where we're going. But the other thing I want to do is to take it to different parts of the country. But I also then want to popularise it. I want it to become, I want to break through the sort of Westminster Village, and I want the public to get a sense of where future jobs are going to come from, why Britain does still make things and why it needs to make more things and better.
No, but the fact is that we say we've got a growth strategy, but we have yet to show it.
Lord Mandelson had a giant checkbook which he went round opening up all over the country, spending tens of billions of pounds. He promised to 200 projects, 2/3 of which were conveniently located in Labour marginal seats. Given that so much money was spent, it is only right for a responsible...
What did Harding do?
So there's a leader in the Times which I would not normally sort of probably even read, let alone care about, but I mean it both lacks substance or argument, and so I don't quite know what they're going on about, but it's also sort of curiously personal, and I want to understand it. I mean, I don't care what people say, but I'd rather understand the argument. I mean, I thought that it would be a brilliant idea if you actually heard what my views are and my policies and my ideas from me before slamming me for what I don't think and am not doing for motives I don't possess. And if you had just ever, any of your staff had ever bothered to ask me what I think and what I'm doing and why, then you could attack me even better. But I'm sorry, what is the position I'm taking? How would you define it? Good. I look forward to it.
Just briefly, the article is
The next editor is
Peter!
Yeah, I'm just here, Richard. Right.
P. Why is this thing I've written here being crossed out?
Because it was undecipherable. And we thought fair was a better expression.
Thank you, what I want. Thank you.
But can you tell us precisely what it is?
But, that's spelt B-U-T. Not, that's
Yes,
N-O-T.
okay.
More, that's M-O-R-E. Of,
Okay.
I think that's fairly clear, of, O-F. It's, that's I-T-S.
Okay, let's read the entire sentence.
Share.
Who's going to be doing your biography, do you think?
I don't know. Perhaps if I have enough time on my hands.
Are you going to write one?
I don't know.
Everyone else does.
Yeah. We were in a place 6 months ago where, quite honestly, the uphill struggle was too great. The mountain too big to climb, that's what I knew. But now, it's amazing how things change. It's much more fluid. It's fluid, of course, because of, not really because of us, but because of the Tories. The public are taking a longer look at them, and for the first time the Tories are coming under some sort of scrutiny. And they hate it, of course. Wondered what's hit them, that somebody might actually ask what they would do if they were elected. This has come as a great shock to them, these people who exude such a sort of sense of entitlement. They're coming across as a couple of flaky schoolboys. I mean, they grab every passing headline. They're like a couple of schoolboys running into the sweet shop, putting their hands in every jar, stuffing their pockets, without any sense of discrimination or judgment, and then they sort of rush to the counter, and not only are they completely unaware of the consequences of stuffing themselves with all these sweets, but then they find they can't even pay for them either. I mean, it's a sort of, that is what I think people are beginning to feel about them. And Cameron has invested his own authority and his own credibility in Osborne. He is the weakest link. He may not be so weak that he stops them being elected. That's only time will tell. But he's certainly too weak to be a strong chancellor. Now, hold on, Marie. I'm going to Nottingham tomorrow, yeah?
Yeah. There's a reception tomorrow night and then...
How annoying.
Is there anything you wanted to do on Friday specifically?
I want to work. I want it to be my time, my thinking time, my thinking time, my work.
Thank you.
Announcement was going to be made, barely 6 days later. And I think it would have been more honest, more straightforward and straight dealing with the company and its workforce, and also with the government, if she had told me what their intentions were.
Where's Jeffrey?
He's having a meeting about budget.
Is it? Okay.
The Prime Minister wants to talk about the economy. Let me give him one statistic and see if he will confirm it. Figures out today show that GDP per capita is lower today than when this government began. Will he confirm this is the first government in 40 years to leave this country poorer than when it began?
Well, it would be worrying if it were true. I mean, we're not closing down universities or campuses or courses or whatever. The problem with the North East media, oftentimes, I said it all the time when I was Member of Parliament for Hartlepool, is that you are a constant stream of demoralising news for the North East. You never stop talking down the region. Now, what you've got to do, of course, is paint an accurate picture of what's happening, and it's your job to point out the problems and challenges that the region faces. But could you also, as a BBC and other local media, point to the good news, the creation of new businesses? I'm not asking you to put a positive spin on anything. I'm not asking you to spin anything. What I'm trying to say to you is that businesses will come and businesses will go. That's in the nature of our economy, especially given the sort of global recession we've gone through. And what I'm saying to you is that businesses come, they start up, they grow as well. They're so woefully ignorant. These people who sit in BBC radio studios, they have no idea what is happening beyond their own building. I remember Tony once saying, you know, you've got to stop acting, he said, in such a sort of imperial way. And what he meant by that was, you know, you're very tough with people, you're very sort of sure of yourself, you're a bit sort of categorical and a bit, this must be done in the way that I want at the time of my choosing. You've just got to handle people a bit more, you know. And that was, you're probably right, he was a very good observer of me, but that was partly because I had gone through the 80s and the 90s trying to change the bloody Labour Party. And I was very impatient, it's absolutely true, but the other thing was that I felt a sense of power, and I think I showed it too much. That's, I think, what he meant. I remember Neil Kinnock saying at the end of the 80s, early 90s, people who say that Peter Mandelson is Labour's evil genius are only half right.
Do you remember who said he's a curious mixture of geniality and venom?
No, geniality and venom, no, who was it?
That was Churchill on your grandfather.
Oh, really? Amazing. My grandfather believed very deeply that the Labour Party was a national party or it was nothing, that we weren't a sectional party of the trade unions. He didn't want to cut our links with the trade unions, but he certainly didn't want to be pushed around by them, and he certainly didn't want people to feel that the only thing we stood for was what the trade unions wanted that day.
I personally have always thought that there was no necessary antagonism between Labour and what are known as the middle classes.
How did New Labour come about? What was...
New Labour finally came about when Tony Blair made it come about, but the roots of it were in the 1980s. After the 83 election, absolute disaster. We nearly went down the plug hole in the 83 general election. We stabilised, Neil Kinnock became leader, and he embarked with a team around him, of whom I was one, to rescue the Labour Party from oblivion, to drive out the ultra-left and the militant entryists, and then to start to deal with some of our more extreme vote-losing policies. And it was hard fought. I mean, it was hand-to-hand combat. I mean, I felt in particular I was helping him fight in the jungle against people in our own party who were trying to consign us to oblivion, whilst at the same time as the communications director fighting the media and taking on the press.
I think for too long the Labour Party has viewed television as our persecutor. Well, I want to use television as our tool, as our servant, and we shall be presenting ourselves and putting across our policies and making sure that our spokesmen get the coverage so that they can communicate directly with the people.
What was the moment that you realised that it would have to be Tony rather than Gordon at that moment?
I didn't really decide. I didn't make the call, others did, when John died. The party, in opinion amongst Labour MPs and the trade unions, just went to Tony. I mean, like, whoosh, like that. I mean, it happened within 24, 48 hours. And Gordon realised it. It's just coming to terms with it and adjusting to it was very hard and very painful, and then easing himself out of the race to allow Tony to go forward created a real amount of pain, I mean, both for him and his supporters. They couldn't look at Gordon and ask themselves why he wasn't favoured over Tony. It had to be because somebody did this to him, and I was the instrument of choice.
Straight up your back.
That's great. Let's have a quick look.
That's good. What about looking out the window?
No, that's really weird. It looks as if my head has been grafted onto somebody else. That's much better.
So some of the early ones from that setup, because I went wider with the lens. Go back one. So I think that's really nice.
Good, huh? No, I don't like my mouth. My mouth looks old there. Still. Come on, that's it.
Okay, let's go.
Just sort of tell me, what is your SWOT analysis? Strengths.
Well, it's all threats and no opportunities. Yeah, I mean, look, the biggest, I think, the biggest single thing we have to focus on, which obviously relates to the budget, is how do we demonstrate that this manifesto is a fiscally credible package, which points the way to a sort of credible next term for the Labour Party. I mean, I think the danger, as we've seen before, is that it looks like a set of spewed out uncosted commitments that don't add up.
I mean, it would be very hard to stop everyone piling everything into it by the kitchen sink.
Can we do more than high-speed rail, growth and social care? Personally, I think we're in a real mess on social care, but we've now discovered that we need 1.5 billion to fund the next Parliament, but we've discovered since a 3.8 billion black hole in the funding for maintaining the current level of social care provision.
Okay, that's very unfortunate.
Yes, current provision and the bill's proposals and what we'd want to do in the next Parliament would cost in total 5.2 billion. So it would be 3.8 plus 1.5.
Sorry, it would be about 5 billion?
5.2 billion, yeah.
The Prime Minister's supporters rushed to deny allegations about his behaviour towards his staff. A new book details a series of alleged black moods and angry outbursts, from shoving aside an aide to crashing his fist into the back of a car seat.
He hasn't hit you? He hasn't shouted at you?
Hit me?
Yeah.
Metaphorically or physically?
I don't know either.
Well, I think history records we've had our moments. But I would like to think that I took my medicine like a man.
We are not suggesting that Gordon Brown is a bully. What we are saying is staff in his office, working directly with him, have issues and have concerns and have contacted our helpline. And we believe that the present statement that Mandelson and others are putting out, categorically denying that it is occurring, is a nonsense and it is non-credible.
Thank you for your confidence in Britain, which I believe we will repay. And thank you for your support for Britain, which we will return. Thank you very much.
270 overseas visitors here for it, and all the journalists want to talk about are the allegations of bullying.
Do you find that the closer you get to the election, you're just putting out fires? I mean,
we're also creating fires. You put out some, you create others. That is the whole game plan. Sometimes you get burned, and sometimes you see others getting burned. That's life. It's going to be like that for the next 2 or 3 months.
Do you quite like that?
Well, it's something to get up in the morning for, isn't it?
Andrew, that was great. That's great, and that's what you said, Pete. I know you've got having part conversation.
I'm not going to answer questions about bullying in this conference, but I'm doing interviews. I have to know from exactly what are the sort of facts and assumptions out there. Well, I must say I think this whole affair is starting to acquire a slight odour.
Are you saying that this woman's accusations were entirely politically motivated?
But what are the accusations? She said on radio, I heard her, that she wasn't actually making any allegations or claims about the Prime Minister personally.
Businesses have to take bullying seriously. And this is what she says was one of her criticism. Why wasn't there any investigation taking place rather than just an outright denial?
Investigation of what?
Well, of allegations of bullying.
Which allegations?
Well, allegations of the Prime Minister.
Which allegations?
Hitting out at people, pulling them out of their chairs, you know, these kind of things.
Now, I've said to you before, nobody tolerates bullying in this government or in any part of this government. Period. Zero. And that's it. Okay?
So, Pete, do you think you put out the bullying fire?
No, I think it's got a little way to rage yet, because it's perfectly clear to me that this isn't just somebody with a book to sell. It's a political thing. And, you know, our political opponents are out there stirring like mad, trying to find people to throw fuel on the fire.
But given that we know he gets into terrible rages, and everybody knows that, so how do you...
He doesn't get into terrible rages. I think that, look...
I've heard him on the phone to you getting cross.
Is that a rage?
How do you define rage?
He's a rage, not bullying me. He's just sort of saying to me, hear my pain.
It's amazing, isn't it, that every time there's a kind of crisis, you see Peter, you don't see anybody else, do you?
Well, Peter is the best command of language, and he is the best command of... He can see the pitfalls, while sometimes getting carried away. But, you know, a forceful language today might be tomorrow's trap. I think yesterday wasn't bad, but I think Peter went too far in defending the regime in number 10, and I think possibly damaged his own standing a little bit in the process. People know it isn't black and white, and I think that diminished his credibility ever so slightly. Andrew Gibson in the Telegraph is a very funny description of the way Peter dealt with this yesterday. He says here, Lord Mandelson was accordingly deployed to administer the lethal put-down to the head of the National Bullying Helpline. The thinner the ice, the more gracefully Lord Mandelson glides across it. He is the man who loves danger, never happier than when sweeping with the elegance of an Olympic figure skater to the rescue of his accident-prone chief. Almost constant crisis has made Lord Mandelson indispensable. He has become Mr. Brown's full-time carer, the one person who knows how to keep the ailing leader alive.
None of his policies stand up, and that's why there is never any substance from the leader of the opposition.
It was this Prime Minister who put character at the heart of the election. It was this Prime Minister who says, judge us on his moral compass. Why is it the moral compass always points at someone else rather than him? This is a verbatim eyewitness account from one of the journalists. Listen to this. Brown's point man turned to the journalist and started laying in...
Order. If honourable and right honourable members do not stop shouting,
I may have to ring some sort of helpline myself. Or worse still, suspend the sitting. It makes an extremely bad impression, this sort of noise and ranting on the British public. I appeal to the House to have some regard for the way in which we are viewed by the electorate. The House will hear the Leader of the Opposition.
Peter, are you prepared to do the world tonight?
Hi Theo. Hi, we're just doing a kind of last minute thing. We're doing Channel 4 News, but we're up against Ken Clark. Is there anything that the Tories are saying this morning that's new that we need to know about?
It's got to go. It can't be said.
Didn't say any of that.
Well, yes, you did.
You normally quote a different version of what I said.
Well, what are you saying?
I have said that your position is that you are increasing public spending,
and we've got to tackle
over 30. That's right.
But how will you tackle it?
By freezing the salaries of all public sector.
We're doing that. We're doing that.
Hang on.
There's a degree of pantomime creeping in of oh yes you will, oh no you won't. So
by tomorrow you may say it, Peter, but you haven't said it yet.
But what you also know, because you're a wonderful ex-chance, as you keep reminding us, living and trading on your past,
unlike you, Peter, I have a past that I can live.
I did not lie, I did not deceive, and I did not set out to mislead.
He was forced out of office not once, but twice. The first time was when a fellow minister admitted lending him a large sum for a London home. The secret deal with Geoffrey Robinson hadn't been declared. Mr. Mandelson resigned again after being brought back as Northern Ireland Secretary. This time, it was a row over his role in a passport application for a rich Indian businessman.
The Prime Minister called Mr. Mandelson 3 times on the eve of his resignation, but clearly wasn't satisfied with the answers he received. Yet today he's exonerated, and Downing Street say he's left without a stain on his character. Cold comfort for the man learning to live without his cabinet career.
I do believe him to be a person of immense ability and indeed integrity. And I do say to people right at the very beginning, I said this was a tragic case. And I said that I believed he would be cleared of any impropriety, and I'm very pleased for his sake that he has been. And I hope he's able now to get on and rebuild his life, because he is someone of great ability with a lot to give.
It seemed very brutal by Tony Blair.
And I mean, it seemed lots of things, and as Tony said on a number of occasions after, if he had known then at the time what he learned subsequently, he would have never have taken the decision.
The Prime Minister's spoken for the entire government, and I don't need to add to that.
I wish that Alistair Campbell had not sort of given him the advice or interpreted the events in a way that led to the conclusion that I should go. I mean, there are some who I've sort of renewed my friendship with. There are others who I will never be a friend of, but who I will just coexist with and work with in government and in politics, because I have to.
That's absolutely very much.
I was reading, as I'm sure you have, Alistair Campbell's new diaries.
I haven't read the original ones, so. And I haven't got the new ones.
He spent so much time arguing. I mean, he paints a picture of it's almost like kind of Grange Hill meets, I don't know, Lord of the Flies, with everyone fighting and crying and slamming doors, and I mean, it's amazing that you managed to do anything.
Well, it wasn't really like that, or it wasn't all like that. But look, politics, you've got to understand, is a very passionate business, and you have very inspired, very driven people who are not just fighting for their place, they're fighting for their view or their opinion and their outlook. It's what's called creative tension.
Creative tension. Over the Robinson thing, it was Gordon and Gordon's camp who set you up. It wasn't to do with Tony. Is that absolute rubbish?
I mean, to be perfectly frank, it doesn't really interest me to go into it. I mean, what happened, happened. It's a long time ago. A lot of water's flowed under the bridge. And for me, it's a closed door.
How do you, as a person and as a politician, then incorporate what you know has happened to you into your present?
Well, that's a very interesting question, but you just have to live with it. You have to rise above it. My closeness to Tony Blair was my Achilles heel. Rather than my great strength and saviour, the fact that I was so close to him made him more brutal in his handling of me and dealing with me. I think I was a very good lightning conductor for him. Having me stuck up there on his shoulder meant the lightning oftentimes and the flak was attracted to me rather than to him.
But I think that's one of the things that he's rather good at, though.
Yeah, he's a very effective politician. That's what's made him so successful.
I know, but
why I love him so much.
I know. But, so why do you love him so much? Actually, let's be honest. Why do you love him so much?
Because I think he's. First of all, he's genuinely a very nice person. He has a nice personality and a good character. Secondly, his views, his political outlook was pure New Labour, and so was and remains mine. And thirdly, because he was a very effective Prime Minister, and I admired that. I like effectiveness, I like people who agree with me, and I like people who are nice and decent, and he was all those three things. Can we stop now? Marginals are being literally bought up by Ashcroft. It's the biggest affront to British democracy that I have ever known in my life. We know that in marginal seats, the more tightly run races, people know that each vote counts for more because it's going to have a greater impact in determining the result. Then, in a sense, what's happening is that the Tories are buying these seats below the radar. We simply do not have the funds. We don't have millions and millions and millions of pounds as the Conservatives do. You know, the fact is that we are, we are David in this sort of fight between David and Goliath. That's what it is. That's how it is. I think the point about Lord Ashcroft is that on the third attempt to give him a peerage by the Conservative Party, he was only able to accept it on condition that he became a fully fledged tax-paying British citizen. And now we discover, 10 years on, that that hasn't been the case. So in a sense, he's been sitting in the House of Lords on false pretences.
Lord Ashcroft only became a member of the House because he promised in writing to become a permanent resident in this country, which meant paying full UK taxes. But he then changed that undertaking, pledging instead to become a long-term resident. That allowed him to avoid paying taxes on his substantial overseas earnings.
Did you see that Ashcroft has come out now?
Flushed out.
Flushed out.
Driven out.
Why is it so different of Ashcroft to Cohen or to Lord Paul?
Because he's the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. Secondly, he was having been rejected by the Independent Committee twice when he was given a peerage by the Conservatives. The third time, he was only allowed to take it on the condition that he became a fully tax resident citizen of the United Kingdom. And it now transpires that he didn't keep to that deal, and they've concealed it for the last 10 years. And now it's been flushed out, and they've had to come clean. And worst of all, he says, I'm going to put it right, but only if the Conservatives win the next election, as if that should make any difference. If that was the basis on which he was given the peerage in the first place, it should be right to comply with that condition, whoever wins the election, Conservatives or Labour.
Lord Ashcroft in private plays to his Bond villain image. Was David Cameron too frightened to take him on? Too awed by his work in the marginals, which Tory strategists all think would make the difference at the general election and deliver them victory?
My Lord Secretary of State, thank you very much.
Grace, silence for grace, by the chaplain to the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor.
We give our thanks for all the mercies we receive, and in this turning topsy-turvy world, we ask for resolution, courage, grace, that from the turmoil of our times, new hopes might spring, which lead to lives restored, made new.
There have been furious clashes at Prime Minister's questions over the government's handling of the British Airways strike. David Cameron accused Gordon Brown of being weak because the strike is being organised by the Unite Union, the Labour Party's biggest financial backer.
The Tories have highlighted the £11 million which Unite has given Labour in the past 3 years. But who's that man on the masks? It's Charlie Whelan, friend of, advisor to and paid campaigner for Gordon Brown.
Charlie Whelan and Lord Ashcroft are exactly the same. One is the Baron of the trade unions, and the other one is the Baron of Belize.
As political director of the Union Unite, he's now spending his members millions to help his friend get re-elected.
I welcome what they're doing in helping organisation across the country. The problem is that Charlie can't help but step out of his nominal organisational role and go around the media the whole time, talking both about himself, his role, his union, his relationship with the Prime Minister, which is just dreadful for Gordon. It brings back all those old ghosts from his past and makes them salient again.
It must also bring back the ghosts from your past.
It does a bit, but that's sort of incidental. It was one of the things I thought about when the Prime Minister asked me to rejoin the government after I'd been in Brussels for 4 years. You know, do you really want to come back into the suffocating, rather claustrophobic atmosphere of the Westminster Village? And I thought, well, actually, yes. I suppose I wanted to give myself another chance to get it right.
It's about the future of our economy. It's about the future of our society. It's about the future of our country. It's the most important general election for a generation.
I mean, everyone knows that it's a sort of fairly hit and miss. It depends on the question.
Dan, can we get the wording of education speech checked by about the house and schools?
JH, who's JH? John Healy. Yes. John Denner. Yes. Jim Knight. No. You are holding USB sticks. Gordon and Harriet will be holding the manifesto.
Not the manifesto, you're not holding the
Actually, no. I am Gordon. I am Gordon.
Okay.
And the V goes like this.
Everyone looking straight ahead, please.
It's a combination of serious substance and having something sensible and grown up to say, and it's not facile. It has real content, but it's done with a certain charm. It works. Well, I know. But it was like a sort of public meeting. I mean, it was a cross between a press conference and a public meeting, and a sort of university tutorial. It's a good formula.
Manchester, in the heart of the northwest of England, is tonight host to a British political first. Live in front of a representative studio audience, we'll be hearing from three men, each hoping to be the leader of the next UK government in the first election debate. Good evening and welcome.
Come to say something to you.
What?
Peter the Meat very gay.
Yes, I know. I think you gave it to me.
I did not give it to you.
Did you get that, Alistair? Oh, let's start off. Hey.
What?
This thing. Is it half eight?
Yeah.
Can I have something to eat?
Are you lonesome? You're not having me doing my opposite.
Oh, come on.
No.
Please.
I do them all the time, too. What are you doing, anyway?
I'm doing a film about him.
Oh, for God's sake, honestly, really.
Go on, get it.
Oh, for God's sake, what, the Peter Mandelson show?
I'm incredibly nervous and I feel sick.
I'm here to persuade you that there is an alternative. I think we have a fantastic opportunity to do things differently for once. And if we do things differently, we can create the fair society, the fair country we all want. We can do something different this time. That's what I'm about. That's what the Liberal Democrats offer.
You said nothing. You said nothing.
Now, every promise you hear from each of us this evening depends on one thing: a strong economy. And this is the defining year. Get the decisions right now, and we can have secure jobs, we can have standards of living rising, and we can have everybody better off.
That's the sort of change, that's the sort of leadership I would bring to our nation. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your contributions to this, our first debate.
The end of a historic moment in television and political history. A very good night to you.
There's nothing more Mr. Cameron has to say or do. They've won the election already. It's precisely that sort of arrogance, that sense of entitlement that Mr. Cameron exudes, which is, I'm afraid, was not enough to get him through this debate tonight.
Prime Minister, we thought Gordon Brown was desperate in the first
52 Clegg, 30 Brown, 16 Cameron. I mean, that's what it was.
What was that?
He was bloody. He was outstanding.
He's the only person you've got to talk to, George.
Yeah, but I've got licorice also.
Ben, tell George what to say. Go on, George, don't be put off your stride. Please, go on.
Don't rise to him. Don't rise to him. Don't rise to him. It's all right. It's all right.
You did brilliantly, and we have also spun you brilliantly. Ignore the opinion polls or whatever. You have some way to claw back with the public, and you started doing that today, and you did it very well. The format works for you. That's the main thing for you to take away from tonight. It works for you. There are certain adjustments you can make in tone or style or whatever, and all those can be programmed in. But the fact is, the format works for you. The longer you go, the more serious, the more substantial you become. And for Cameron, he just comes across as what he is. He's a born populist who empathises with every audience he talks to. But when you ask the second and the third question of him, behind the veneer, there simply is not enough for Cameron to give. And that's what started to be revealed tonight. And that's why the debate has succeeded in opening up the election.
Where are we off to?
I think we're going to go home.
So, have you?
Will you have a little mini kind of collapse or rest, or will you just keep going?
No, I'm not going to do anything this evening. I'm going to watch a film. I'm going to watch the Tom Ford movie, Single Man. I was very excited meeting Tom Ford the other week. So I'll watch his movie. And Saturday I will work on and off during the day. And then Sunday I'll work on and off. I was always doing this from a very early age, flying around where we lived, on my little bicycle at election time, going from the committee rooms to the polling station, taking numbers back and forth. And my mother was very particular. She said, just keep me out of your beastly politics. Sometimes people ask me, tell us about your hinterland. Tell us what you do when you're not doing politics. Tell us what you're doing when you're not working. And my mind goes a complete blank, and I think, why is this? And I realise, of course, it's because, by and large, I'm working. And when I'm not working, I'm sort of sleeping and occasionally watching the television.
What frightens you?
Nothing.
Is it ever?
Not really. I'm a fairly fearless chap. The thing that I worry about leaving government and doing something else, should that arise, is will I have the same pressure? Will I have the same demands on me? I mean, both intellectual and physical. I mean, I've been doing this all my adult life. I can't imagine not doing it. I don't know where I would find that sort of pressure or that opportunity or that stress or all that opportunity to do things well for people. I don't know in what other form of life I would ever find that.
We're part of Europe. We want to cooperate and work with our allies in Europe to get things done. But I do agree with you that we have let too many powers go from Westminster to Brussels.
Who do you think? Who got that one?
I think that Cameron, he needed a game changer, and he hasn't got a game changer. He needed to transform it, he needed to break through, he needed to do something different, he needed to impose himself on the debate and on the public. I don't think Cameron was a washer, but I don't think he broke through in the way that he needed to.
If I've said anything that has been hurtful, and I will apologise to her personally.
Someone has just handed me the tape. Let's play it and see if we can hear it.
She'll never have put me with that woman. Whose idea was that?
No, I didn't see her.
That's Sue, I think. They're just ridiculous.
What did she say?
Ugh, everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman.
If they say that, and if they say, you know, what did you mean by bigot, or is she bigot? He said, look, one thing we firmly established is Mrs. Duffy isn't a bigot, and immigration is not a no-go area.
What I want about today is the big issues.
Yeah, no, I thought she was saying no university students should come from abroad.
We'll control it, but don't get agitated.
They will finally root out this outrageous abuse of bank bonuses. Mr. Brown.
We've got to get young people into work. We cannot have a situation where they're on the street corners, and we can't have a Conservative Party that keeps opposing all our jobs proposals, including our Future Jobs Fund, that is designed to stop youth unemployment in the country.
It hasn't even finished yet, but no one's listening anymore. Look at that. In the middle of that throne is Peter Mandelson. The spinning has already begun.
Well, I think what we're seeing tonight is quite an extraordinary barnstorming performance from Gordon Brown. Given all the circumstances, he has been on top of the issues and the key dividing lines between himself and David Cameron right from the word go. He's put a key dividing line in place between the government's approach to the economy and our insistence on securing the recovery.
Don't worry, it's £90 after next week. So you stay there. Paul, have you seen Osborne at all? Alistair needed to win that today, but I mean, that wasn't convincing.
Well, it was a win, and it was I thought it was a clear and compelling win.
David Cameron's done well throughout these debates. As I said, we'll see the reaction to the debate, but we're very pleased with these.
How much narrow was that? Put that camera away.
We're just putting Adam in.
Brits don't get down and dirty like this. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary to be mellying around like this. And actual politicians. In America, the politicians stay well out of this. You've got the real expert spinners doing it. But here, there's a complete melange. Most undignified. Most undignified.
Explain what happened when Lord Mandelson came into the room before the debate.
The oxygen was sucked from the room. It was quite extraordinary. It was the entrance of King Constantine of Greece or something. But he just plays the gallery. I mean, it's extraordinary. He is a political force we've never seen before in British politics. At one at the same time, both sending it out and performing.
Lovely, thank you. So when are we going to see your film, Peter?
Not for a long time.
June? July?
I've decided to extend it. We're taking it to Corfu this summer.
Very good.
Taking it to
Cassiope.
That's right.
Begin by admitting that they're the underdogs in this fight, and that's why they're saying this.
That's right. They have to admit that they have no chance of winning a majority in this election. Privately, most have given up hope of even winning the most votes in this election. Many believe it's unlikely they'll win the most seats.
The fate of politicians, the length and breadth of this land, is in the hands of its people. There are 42,000 polling stations available for the 44 million individuals who have registered to vote. The polls in all of these contests will close at 10 tonight.
I've had some very, very good news. Win or lose, I could just stay. Obviously, if we win, it will be business as usual. I just, take decisions, sign warrants, dispense money like a Bourbon king. If we don't win, I still stay, but I help whoever comes in. And I'm not able to go around the whole department thanking everyone individually, but I can thank you because you have been so wonderful for me, and you've just supported me and just given me the time of my life. So work hard.
We will.
Now,
back away.
Is there any cake underneath?
They did tell me there was a sponge in there.
Do I do it like this?
Yeah.
How have you prepared for tonight, Peter? How have you prepared for tonight?
I'm preparing for tonight. I'm doing it now.
As the person who's running the Labour Party election, do you think there's a danger that you will be used as a scapegoat if things don't go well?
I'm well up for being anyone's scapegoat. I've gone through such sort of ructions in my political life. I have been cast down so badly and deeply on 2 occasions that there's a sort of bit of me that feels that it could never be any worse. What share of the vote did we get in 2005, Patrick?
36, I'll just check.
And 2001 and 1997.
Said to me 6 months ago that we would achieve a Hong Kong as a result of this election, I would not have believed you. It's quite amazing.
People had the chance to vote for Gordon Brown to continue as Prime Minister, and they have not taken that chance, according to this exit poll.
I think the Labour Party has succeeded in narrowing the race from, a time at the turn of the year when we were being written off, and everyone thought that David Cameron was simply going to waltz into Downing Street. Well, that hasn't happened. But I think the reason for the possibility of our party
I think that there's a long way to go tonight. There have been some very interesting results already. I thought the Torbay was an interesting one, and I think
these members, we just heard about holding on Northwest, and they're also 29,500.
that it? Anything else you want to ask?
Loads of things, but I don't
Well, like
think
what?
you're in the quite right zone.
I didn't understand what you mean. I'm not in the right zone.
No, I think you're. I think very understandably, you're going away tomorrow. You finished a book today. You've got lots of things going on.
I'm perfectly happy to answer questions if you want me to answer. What's been wrong with my answer? You don't like my answers?
There's nothing wrong with your answers at all. Absolutely nothing. And you've been extremely
Then what are you
polite,
saying,
and very
then?
engaged, and very whatever. But
Then what are you saying?
the Mandelsonian sparkle is not there today.
Sorry, I can't help.
I know you can't.
Anyway, if you don't want me to carry on, I won't.
Oh, for God's sake. Will there always be a Tom with you?
Always.
Are you ever alone, Peter?
Hannah, I'm a professional politician. I'm not some sort of mannequin.
Bye-bye. See you.
Coming up next this evening, there's comedy as Series 2 of Getting On continues.